Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's story is entitled Living Without Fear. If this is your first time on my channel, please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and hit the notification bell so we can update you with amazing African tales. This is the story of Emmanuel from Bamenda, Cameroon. His life was deeply rooted in the rich, red soil of the family's cocoa farm in Cameroon. This land, passed down through generations, was more than a means of living. It was the embodiment of his family's heritage and a testament to their hard work and perseverance. The farm, situated in a lush, green valley, was a picture of serenity, with rows upon rows of cocoa trees standing like sentinels against the backdrop of verdant hills. Each morning, Emmanuel rose with the sun, ready to face the day's tasks. He loved the rhythmic routine of farming, inspecting the cocoa pods for ripeness, ensuring the trees were healthy, and coordinating with workers who depended on the farm for their livelihood. His wife, Amina, was his steadfast partner, balancing the demands of the farm with caring for their infant daughter, Leila. Together, they dreamed of a future where Leila would grow up surrounded by the land that had nurtured their family for so long. Emmanuel was not only a farmer but a pillar of his community. He often organized gatherings to discuss ways to improve the village and shared resources with those in need. He had a reputation for fairness and generosity, traits that had earned him the respect and trust of his neighbors. To Emmanuel, the farm was more than just a business. It was a symbol of hope and community, a place where people could come together and support one another. The farm had its challenges, of course. The cocoa market was unpredictable, and the threat of crop diseases always loomed. Yet, Emmanuel faced each obstacle with determination and resilience, drawing strength from the land and his family's unwavering support. His deep love for the farm and his family fueled his relentless drive to succeed, even in the face of adversity. May 2018 began like any other month, with Emmanuel focused on maintaining his farm and planning for future growth. On a routine trip to the nearby village to buy supplies, he was filled with optimism. The farm was thriving, and Emmanuel was considering investing in better equipment to increase their cocoa yield. He imagined the possibilities of expanding the farm and securing a more prosperous future for his family. However, as Emmanuel approached his farm on his return journey, a sense of unease began to creep in. From a distance, he could see military vehicles parked near the entrance, a sight that immediately set his heart racing. Soldiers, with stern expressions and weapons in hand, were scattered across his beloved land, searching through the crops and buildings as though hunting for something or someone. As he got closer, a masked man pointed directly at him, his voice cutting through the tense air. "He is the one." Confusion and fear gripped Emmanuel as he was surrounded by soldiers. They accused him of collaborating with separatists, providing them with food and information. Emmanuel was shocked by the accusations, as he had always lived a peaceful life focused solely on his farm and family. He had no ties to the separatists or their cause. Despite his protest and pleas of innocence, the soldiers were unyielding. The betrayal stung deeply. Emmanuel had dedicated his life to his farm and community, and now he was being branded a traitor. The thought of being taken away from his wife and daughter filled him with dread, but there was nothing he could do as they forced him into custody. The soldiers led Emmanuel to a cramped, dimly lit room, where the interrogation began. The air was thick with tension, and the relentless questioning soon began to wear on him. Emmanuel was determined to prove his innocence, but each denial only seemed to fuel their anger. He was accused of aiding the separatists, a charge that was both absurd and terrifying. The soldiers demanded to know why he was supporting the separatists, insisting that he had been providing them with food and intelligence. Emmanuel's mind raced as he tried to explain his innocence, but they refused to listen. Each question was met with suspicion, and each answer with disbelief. Despite his honest denials, the interrogators were convinced of his guilt. Days turned into nights as the brutal interrogation continued. Emmanuel was subjected to beatings and torture, his body a canvas of bruises and scars. The physical pain was unbearable, but the mental anguish was far worse. The idea of never seeing Amina and Leila again tormented him. He thought of their safety and how helpless he felt being trapped in this nightmare. Throughout the ordeal, Emmanuel clung to the belief that justice would prevail. He had always believed in the power of truth and integrity, but now, those beliefs were being tested in the most harrowing way. His only hope was that someone would realize the mistake that had been made and set him free. Emmanuel's resilience was his lifeline. He thought of Amina's strength and Leila's innocent smile, drawing strength from his love for them. He knew he had to survive, for their sake if not his own. The determination to return to his family gave him the strength to endure the torture and keep his spirit alive amidst the darkness. One fateful night, a fire broke out in the prison, spreading rapidly and causing chaos among the guards and inmates. The air was filled with the acrid smell of smoke and the panicked cries of prisoners scrambling to escape the inferno. Emmanuel realized that this was his chance, perhaps his only chance, to break free. Amidst the confusion, with adrenaline coursing through his veins, he managed to slip away from his captors. The flames provided a cover, masking his escape as he navigated the dark corridors of the prison. His heart raced as he darted past guards, distracted by the blaze, driven by the urgent need to return to his family. Outside, the night was pitch black, but Emmanuel's path was clear. He had to get back to the farm and find Amina and Leila. He ran through the dense bush, his body aching from the beatings but propelled by a fierce determination. The cool night air was a welcome contrast to the heat of the prison, and with each step, he felt the weight of captivity begin to lift. Reaching the farm, he found Amina waiting anxiously. Her relief at seeing him was palpable, but there was no time to celebrate. They had to act quickly before the soldiers realized he was gone. Amina had already packed a small bag with essentials, anticipating the possibility of escape. They gathered Leila, who was blissfully unaware of the danger, and set out into the night. The family made their way to a neighboring farm, where they hoped to find refuge. There, they hid in the dense foliage, praying that the soldiers wouldn't find them. Life in hiding was a daily struggle. They had little food and even less security, and every sound in the night brought the fear of discovery. Despite the hardships, Emmanuel felt a sense of hope for the first time in weeks. He was with his family, and they were safe, for now. As they huddled together in the darkness, he promised himself that he would do whatever it took to protect them and find a way to a better life. Living in hiding on the neighbor's farm was both a blessing and a challenge. Emmanuel, Amina, and Leila found temporary refuge in the dense bush, shielded from prying eyes by the thick canopy of leaves. It was a precarious existence, constantly moving to avoid detection, but it was their only option. Emmanuel knew they couldn't stay hidden forever. Supplies were scarce, and the risk of being discovered was ever present. Every rustle in the bushes, every unfamiliar sound, set their hearts racing. They relied on the kindness of the farm's owner, who discreetly brought them food and water whenever possible. Despite the hardship, Emmanuel was grateful for the chance to be with his family. The conditions in the bush were harsh. Leila, still an infant, was particularly vulnerable. She fell ill from mosquito bites, her cries piercing the silence of the night and reminding Emmanuel of the urgency of their situation. The family did their best to keep her safe and healthy, using makeshift remedies to treat her fever and soothe her discomfort. The days turned into weeks, and the family settled into a routine of cautious survival. Emmanuel remained vigilant, always watching for signs of danger. He spent his days planning and praying for a solution, knowing that their current situation was unsustainable. By August, Emmanuel realized they needed a more permanent solution. He managed to contact his uncle, who lived in a distant village. Upon hearing about their plight, his uncle insisted they come to stay with him. It was a glimmer of hope in a seemingly hopeless situation. Sending Amina and Leila ahead on a bus was a difficult decision, but it was necessary. The military was still searching for Emmanuel, and traveling together would put them all at risk. He knew the journey was perilous, but it was their best chance at safety. Emmanuel followed on a dirt bike, navigating the back roads and small plantations to avoid detection. He moved under the cover of darkness, relying on his knowledge of the land to guide him safely to his uncle's compound. The journey was exhausting, but the thought of reuniting with his family kept him going. Finally, he arrived at his uncle's home, where he was greeted with open arms and a renewed sense of hope. For the first time in months, Emmanuel felt a sense of safety. Yet, he knew they couldn't remain hidden forever. The journey was far from over, but they had taken the first step towards rebuilding their lives. Life at Emmanuel's uncle's house offered a brief respite from the fear and uncertainty that had dominated his life for months. The family was able to relax and recuperate, surrounded by the support and love of relatives who understood their plight. Emmanuel was grateful for the sanctuary his uncle provided, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were still not entirely safe. By October 2018, Emmanuel started thinking about returning to his hometown. He wanted to gather some personal belongings and important documents that he had left behind in the rush to escape. He believed the situation might have calmed down, and if he could retrieve their possessions, it would help them start anew somewhere else. Emmanuel decided to hire movers to help him pack and transport their belongings. He hoped to be in and out of the town quickly, minimizing the risk of encountering the military. As he arrived at his house, a flood of memories washed over him, memories of the life they had built and the dreams they had shared on this land. As Emmanuel was inside, packing and reminiscing about happier times, he suddenly heard shouts from outside. The movers were fleeing, their faces filled with panic. Emmanuel's heart dropped as he realized the soldiers had returned. They stormed into the house, their expressions hard and unforgiving. Emmanuel felt a deep sense of dread as he realized they were still determined to capture him. The soldiers accused him of being a separatist sympathizer, and this time, they declared they would not let him escape again. The thought of being taken away from his family once more filled him with despair, but he knew he had to remain strong. They beat him mercilessly, their anger palpable as they sought to punish him for his previous escape. Despite the pain and fear, Emmanuel clung to the hope that he would find a way out. His survival instincts kicked in, urging him to stay alert and look for any opportunity to escape. As the soldiers prepared to transport him to a prison, Emmanuel silently prayed for a miracle. He thought of Amina and Leila, their faces giving him the strength to endure. The future seemed bleak, but Emmanuel was determined to fight for his family and their chance at a better life. As Emmanuel was being transported by the soldiers, an unexpected turn of events unfolded. Gunshots erupted from both sides of the bush, filling the air with chaos and confusion. The soldiers were forced to focus on defending themselves, momentarily distracted from their captive. Emmanuel seized the opportunity. Despite the searing pain in his body and the handcuffs that bound his wrists, he crawled away from the scene, using the underbrush as cover. Each movement was agony, but his determination to escape overpowered the physical pain. He had to survive for his family's sake. Luck was on his side when a good Samaritan stumbled upon him in the bush. This kind stranger helped Emmanuel to his feet, provided him with clothes to disguise himself, and directed him to safety. The fear of being caught was constant, but the stranger's generosity and compassion gave Emmanuel a renewed sense of hope. Emmanuel managed to find a commercial bike and made his way to a nearby hospital, where he was treated for his injuries. The staff were kind, but one nurse warned him that soldiers often raided the hospital in search of suspects. She advised him to leave as soon as possible to avoid being caught again. Heeding the nurse's warning, Emmanuel left the hospital and made his way back to his uncle's house. Though his body ached and his spirit was weary, he was grateful to be alive and free. His uncle welcomed him with open arms, relieved to see him safe once more. Emmanuel's uncle was increasingly worried about the family's safety. The soldiers were relentless, and it was only a matter of time before they returned. Emmanuel knew he had to find a permanent solution to ensure his family's security. His thoughts turned to the possibility of leaving Cameroon altogether, in search of a place where they could live without fear. Though the path ahead was uncertain, Emmanuel remained hopeful. His resolve to protect his family and secure a brighter future for them was stronger than ever. He was determined to find a way to build a new life, free from the shadows of fear and persecution. The tension in Emmanuel's uncle's house was palpable, as everyone knew that the soldiers could return at any moment. The family lived in a constant state of alertness, ready to flee at the slightest sign of danger. Emmanuel felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him, as he knew their safety depended on his ability to make the right decisions. His uncle, understanding the gravity of the situation, made the difficult decision to move Emmanuel to a friend's house for 2 weeks. The friend was a trusted ally who lived in a secluded area, providing a temporary haven from the military's relentless search. Emmanuel felt a mix of gratitude and guilt, as he knew his presence put others at risk. During his time in hiding, Emmanuel's thoughts often turned to his family. He missed Amina and Leila terribly and longed for the day they could all be reunited in safety. He spent his days reflecting on their journey so far, planning for the future, and praying for guidance. While staying with his uncle's friend, Emmanuel received word that the soldiers had indeed returned to his uncle's compound. Fortunately, no one was home at the time, but the close call reinforced the urgency of their situation. His uncle, deeply concerned for Emmanuel's well-being, urged him to leave Cameroon entirely. The thought of leaving his homeland was daunting, but Emmanuel knew it was their only option. Cameroon was no longer safe for them, and staying would only put them in further danger. His uncle helped him make arrangements to leave the country, and Emmanuel began preparing for the journey that lay ahead. Saying goodbye to his uncle and the friend who had sheltered him was emotional. Emmanuel was filled with gratitude for their kindness and support, which had sustained him through some of his darkest days. He promised to keep in touch and find a way to repay their generosity once he was settled. With a heavy heart, Emmanuel embarked on the next chapter of his journey, leaving behind the familiar landscapes of Cameroon. He hoped that the path ahead would lead to safety and a new beginning for his family, free from the fear and persecution that had plagued them for so long. Arriving in the United States was both a relief and a challenge for Emmanuel. He hoped to find safety and a chance to start anew, but he quickly realized that the journey was far from over. Upon arrival, he was detained, and the process of seeking asylum began. For 2 years, Emmanuel was held in detention, struggling to navigate the complex legal system without the help of an attorney. He did his best to tell his story, hoping to convey the urgency and desperation of his situation. Yet, the language barrier and lack of legal representation made it difficult for him to make his case effectively. During his time in detention, Emmanuel remained focused on his goal, to reunite with Amina and Leila and build a new life for them in a place where they could live without fear. He wrote letters to his family, assuring them of his love and promising that they would be together again soon. His faith and resilience were unwavering, even in the face of uncertainty. Emmanuel lost his initial asylum case, a devastating blow that left him feeling disheartened but not defeated. He filed an appeal, determined to fight for his family's future. He hoped for a second chance, a chance to present his case with the support he needed to succeed. Meanwhile, Emmanuel held on to hope that the US government might grant temporary protected status, TPS, to Cameroonians. This would allow people like him, who fled violence and persecution, to remain in the United States without fear of being sent back to the dangers they had escaped. Emmanuel knew that many others were in similar situations, and he hoped that by sharing his story, he could help bring attention to the plight of Cameroonians seeking safety and security. He dreamed of a day when he could live without fear, where his family could thrive and build a future filled with peace and opportunity. As he waited for news about his appeal, Emmanuel remained steadfast in his belief that justice and compassion would prevail. His journey had been long and arduous, but his spirit was unbroken. He was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to secure a brighter future for his family. Let us get your thoughts, feeling, ideas, and perspective on the comment section. So guys, we have come to the end of today's story. If you are new here for the first time or if you have been listening without subscribing, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, give us a big thumb up and stay glued because we have more amazing stories to share with you. See you guys again for the next one. Goodbye for now.